Welcome to the LB's Lover of Books author chat. I want to welcome New York Times bestselling author Jessie Sutanto, who's dialing in from Indonesia. I think this is so cool. It's actually already the next day, so it is now Monday where Jessie is. So thank you so much. I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction. Jessie grew up going back and forth between Jakarta and Singapore and considered both places her home. She has completed her master's in creative writing at the University of, her master's in creative writing at the University of Oxford, where she finds it to be one of the most gorgeous places in the world, and her entire personality. But we're going to have to ask that question a little bit later. This Chinese Indonesian author, as of 2022, has published 6. How many is it now? How many books, Jessie? Do you know?
I want to say I think I have 8 out now.
8 out now, so correct on that. And these are novels for adults, young adults, and middle school readers. She is most famous for her novel, Dial A for, is it Aunties or do you say Aunties? Aunties? Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of switch back and forth between Aunties and Aunties.
It won the 2021 Comedy Women in Print Prize and has been optioned for a film by Netflix. She's passionate about women's rights and diversity in publishing. She does regular giveaways where she critiques queries or the first few pages, and she's very interested in helping writers from marginalized communities. If you're a writer from a marginalized community, say hello. Go on her threads, go on her Instagram. She's great at interacting, and she loves hearing from other writers. So just drop in and say hello. Welcome so much, Jessie. Thanks for dialing in.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me.
Do you normally get up at this time? Or are you normally getting a few extra hours in?
No, but my kids went back to school today. Oh, thank God. So so I did have to get up anyway at 6 to get everything ready, and then they went out the door, and I had a very quick breakfast, and that was it.
Oh, well,
I'm
thank
okay.
you. Excellent, excellent. Well, I know you talked about how you had this blurb in your head, and it's actually the blurb on the back of the book. But if it has changed, can you go ahead and tell this audience, and for those who haven't read it, they're just hopping on at the very beginning to hear what this book is about, and then we're going to get into spoilers later. So, can you tell us what Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers is all about?
So Vera Wong is an elderly, slightly elderly lady who's very, very lonely. She lives above her tea house in San Francisco's Chinatown. And one morning she comes downstairs to her tea shop, and she finds a dead body in the middle of it, as you do. And she decides that she is going to investigate the murder, because nobody seeks out truth better than a suspicious Chinese mother. And that's what it's about.
Okay, why San Francisco?
Well, I did my undergrad at Berkeley, and so I'm very familiar with San Francisco. That would be why. Like, a lot of the choices that I make for my books are just basically because I'm lazy and I don't want to do research.
Well, I like the familiarity of it. I mean, it does feel like
Mhm.
we are right there with Vera and the whole cast of characters. Can you tell us what prompted? I know you said you came up with this idea and then you sort of waited to figure out if you were going to start working on it. But what was the thing that sparked this idea? Like, what made you see this dead body in this tea room? I mean, why?
I think I always kind of had the character for Vera because so after writing Dial A for Aunties, I was like, oh, maybe I should write something like this, but where the main character is one of the aunties, like an elderly Asian lady. And so I knew I wanted to write that character, and then of course I had to throw in a murder. And then I was like, okay, well, where can it be set? And at first I thought maybe a bakery, but then all the cozy mysteries are set in bakeries. Um, and I was like, I don't know how to make mine stand out. And so then I was like, oh, a tea house. Yeah, that works.
Well, it's almost a nice little nudge that her arch
Hmm.
enemy is a bakery or patisserie, whatever she wants to call it next door. So it's almost
Yeah.
like a jab at the rest of
Hmm.
the cozy mysteries. You did mention, I remember reading somewhere that your mother is the OG
Hmm.
Vera. Can you tell us a
Hmm.
little bit more about the similarities and maybe the differences between the two?
So Vera is, I would say, 80% based on my mom and then 20% based on my dad. And I feel like I didn't have to make anything up about her. It was like, all the things that she says in the book, like, oh, if you drink cold water, it'll freeze the fats in your arteries and then you'll have a heart attack. Like, those are things that my parents say. They'll be like, oh my God, if you go to sleep past like 9 p.m., you're going to get liver damage. And just like the most random things. And so, yeah, I just literally like every scene, I was like, well, what would, my parents do? What would either of them do? And that was how I would get to like the next scene.
How did your parents take being major character in your novel? Like, what was their reaction to it? Have they read it?
So my mom completely approves of it. So my mom reads all of my books, which is kind of terrifying because she actually tells me when she doesn't like them. Like there was one of my young adult books. They're teenagers, so they're very horny. They're always like they don't even have sex, but they're just thinking about it a lot. And my mom read it, and she was like, "I don't like this. I disapprove. Like, why are they always thinking about sex?" And I was like, well, they're teens. And she was like, I was not like that when I was a teen. And you know what? I believe her. Uh, but when she read Vera, she was like, I approve of this. Vera is very sensible. And I was like, okay, good.
What about your dad? Does he read them, or did you kind of talk about them at all?
Um, no, he doesn't because his English is not good enough to understand my books. So I know like it's going to be translated into Indonesian, so hopefully he'll be able to read it then.
Awesome. I was just curious, when a book does get translated into a foreign, for other countries, does
Mhm.
the audiobook also get translated in those, or is it maybe negotiated for different countries?
Oh my God, that is such a good question. I have no idea, but like I know that it's a different thing. And I think only one of my books has sold like the audio translation, and I believe that was in Poland. So, but that would be so cool to have like different language audiobooks.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. I would love to hear it in Chinese or
Mm-hmm.
in his
Mm-hmm.
native languages. So that would be really
I
cool.
know, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
does your dad at least know that he's 20% of one of your characters, even if he hasn't read it?
I think he kind of knows. Maybe my mom told him.
All right, Jesse, just so you know, your internet's going in and out just a little bit. So I just
Oh,
wanted
okay.
to
Let
know.
me just switch my
For everybody else, is she also going in and out a little bit? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jess.
okay, so hopefully this is better.
All right, the last question was, is Vera's more your humor or more of your parents' humor? Do you add some of your touch in there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say she is so like when my parents say these things, like if you go to bed after 9 p.m., blah blah blah, like they don't mean it to be funny. So then they're very serious when they say these things. So I guess like Vera's humor is like me painting it in like a humorous light, but then the content is my parents.
Are you an only child or do you have siblings? Because I'm wondering, because Vera has one child and very much
Mhm.
attention is focused on this one individual for quite a bit.
Okay. So I have an older brother, and he is not nowhere near as patient as I am with our parents. I don't blame him because they're a lot.
Well, part of the, there's sort of a fine line between overbearing and what we see as you're rooting for the character, right? Like, is the person indeed
Mhm.
or overbearing? And so how do you walk that line as an author? Because you want us to, really fall in love with
Mhm.
Vera, right? And not be as much like Sona's mom. So how do you do that?
Um, I guess first and foremost, just making sure that everything she does comes that is overbearing, like comes from a place of love. So she's going around nosing her way into everyone's lives because she cares about them. So that is the number one thing for me. But honestly, I know that it can be upsetting for people who have had like a bad experience with like an overbearing parent to read this character. So then I kind of just have to be like, well, she's not for everyone. So
I mentioned Sona's mom. With her, you really don't have that warm and fuzzy feeling because we don't know
mhm,
what her intentions are. It's not until later
mhm.
that we do find a little bit more of that love within the character. Which character do you think had the most growth in this book for that? Maybe not just for this reason, but for any of them.
I like to think that all of them grew. Like that was something that I really wanted to show when I was writing it, is that each character, the first time they meet Vera, they're kind of broken and kind of a mess. And then they meet Vera, and because of like this found family, um, they kind of heal each other, they help each other through things. So I want to say like I hope that all of them grew the same amount. Yeah, I can't think of like a single one that I feel like grew the most.
Well, one of Vera's things that she suggests immediately, because she does see broken people like immediately and she wants to try to help
Mm-hmm.
fix, is to offer tea. And so did you have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of experience with the medicinal sides of tea or the positive attributes for all the ingredients, or is that something you had to research?
No, I kind of I grew up with them with traditional Chinese medicine. And so my grandfather, uh he was very traditional, and he was like, "Oh, you must know how to brew Chinese tea properly and serve your husband tea." And so he taught me, how to like do it. Like, so it's like how Vera does it in the book, how you have to like scald the cups and all that, and then you have to pour it a certain way. Which I have never served my husband tea. If I did, I think he would freak out and be like, "What's going on? Is this poisoned?" But I know how to do it. and and then of course like all of the Chinese medicine, like it's just things that my mom would be like, "Oh my god, you have a cold, let me make you some of this, with um the goji berries or whatever." So it's just stuff that I grew up with.
What's your go-to tea? Like, is there something that you fall back on regularly, like a flavor?
Oh my gosh, so it's actually like very plain Lipton black tea that like you boil for really to add email that in the book.
So you broke up a
And
bit. Is this the Lipton recipe that Vera had to use when she went over to the house with all the characters to do?
sorry, I missed the first part of your question.
You broke out, so we missed it. Is this the Lipton
Yeah.
recipe that she had to use to basically fix, Americanized tea?
Yes.
I love that you used your own recipe. Um,
Yeah.
have you read Lisa C's Lady Tan's Circle of Friends yet? Have you read
No,
that?
I haven't. Is
Amazing.
it good? Would you
It's
recommend?
very good. And one of the major aspects
Mm-hmm.
of it is tea and the medicinal uses. And you get to hear a lot about
Mm-hmm.
different parts of that, which I also enjoyed. So it was interesting. I don't think I've ever read two books that talked about tea so much together at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. So that was a neat that hasn't. It's a wonderful book. The other very important part of this book, besides the tea, was the food. Vera sounds like a wonderful cook. Is that one of your hobbies as well?
Not as well as Vera. Like I tend to cook simple things, but it was just something that I was like, what? What do people want? Like, what do people need? Especially these very broken characters. And I was like, what do they need? And I was like, well, they need a home cooked meal. Um, so then I thought of like inserting as much food as I can into the book.
It made me extremely hungry. I don't know about anybody else. Like, I really wanted to try so many of these dishes. Is there someone that you envision that does cook these, or did you have to look them up for? I mean, it was really intricate and very well described. I thought she was.
Uh, I mean, just mom does as much as she used. Now she's like done. She's like, I look like all my life for you kids, and you're grown up, and I'm done.
We lost you there,
I know.
Jesse.
I think I got
You're,
disconnected again. I'm so sorry about my terrible connection, by the way.
we hear you right now, but your picture is frozen. Just FYI.
Oh, shoot.
It's a very normal photo, though, to be frozen. When I get frozen, I never look like just a normal face, right? All right, you're back, Jesse. All right, can you tell us about the food one more time? Sorry, we missed it. Like who cooks it?
Oh, so my mom used to cook for us when we were growing up, but now that we're grown up, she was like, "I'm done. Like I'm not cooking again."
Do you have
So
a
she's
favorite?
done.
Do you have a favorite meal growing up? Like, were some of your favorites sprinkled throughout the book?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. So like all of the noodle soups, noodle anything is like my favorite. So I made sure to have a lot of that. And the what else did I have? Like the pork, and the spicy tofu. Ooh, I love that. So all of my favorite foods are in the book.
Have you ever put the recipes up anywhere if we wanted to try to make them, or can we find them anywhere?
I did. But now I can't remember. I'll have to message you about this, but I was asked to give like one recipe, I think, for a magazine, and I kind of cobbled it together because like when you cook, you don't really I don't really follow a recipe, and my mom certainly doesn't. So it's very difficult to like kind of write it down into like a coherent recipe. It's a lot harder than I thought it would be.
Well, yes, definitely message if you have one already done, then I will send it out to the group. I know we'd all appreciate trying it. Um, I think another part of
Mhm.
this book that was talked about, but not so much. I guess it was really talked about throughout was grief, because several people have lost their spouse, whether or not, it's happened right then or it's happened in the past and they're still grieving. Was that an important theme for you in this book? Because it seemed to really trigger a lot of the storyline.
Yeah, I just knew that I wanted all of the characters to be struggling with something, and it's also really interesting to me how, like with Julia, she was basically in an abusive relationship, and even though he was abusive uh, when Marshall died, there's still a lot of grief and a lot of sadness there, and then also a lot of like resentment and anger as well, um and I just thought like it would be really interesting to kind of delve into that and explore how Marshall's death would leave Julia. Um, and then for Vera, I felt like, I needed her to be very lonely. And so I thought, well, where would her husband be if she was married? And I considered, maybe she's single, like she's always been single and unmarried. But then I thought she would be even lonelier if she's had that loving marriage and then she lost her husband. Um, so yeah, it's mostly about making these characters really lonely, and because I think loneliness is just something that a lot of us can relate to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even with
Mhm.
Marshall's dad, how he had lost his wife as well, like
Mm,
really cope. And that also
yes.
triggered a lot of reactions and the plot as well. Um,
Hmm.
one thing I wanted to talk to you about is the age of Vera, because I know you said elderly, well, sort of. How did you decide how old she was going
Hmm.
to be and how other characters would treat her within the novel?
So I knew that I wanted her to have a young-ish son. So then I was like, well, I can't make her too old. Like if she's 70, then her son is probably gonna be like in his 40s or and I was like, no, I kind of want the son to be younger. So then her age became determined by actually the age of her son. And it's so funny because like I know that 60 is actually not old, but I grew up like with Chinese parents who when they were 40 years old, they would be like, oh, I'm so old, I could die tomorrow. Like literally I could just die tomorrow. And so, you better be good to us because we're old now. We're really old. And they've said this to me since I was in my teens. So so then I when I ask like my friends who are Chinese, they're like, oh yeah, my parents say the exact same thing. They want to be seen as old, so that they're given like more respect, I guess, and I guess as a way of emotional blackmail.
So I was thinking, no guilt there or
uh,
anything, huh? But I think
so
Vera
then
Vera
yeah.
uses it to her advantage. I mean, she definitely
Hmm.
is able to manipulate situations because of how people perceive her age. Or, like you said, I think it is a
Yeah.
respect thing, which is an important part of culture. Um,
Hmm. Yeah.
um, the other thing is when you talked about writing this book, you didn't know it was going to happen when it happened. Can you tell us a little bit more about that process? I don't know how long it took you to write this book, I guess. I'm trying to get an idea of how fast this came out because it seemed pretty rapid.
Yeah, so I do write really fast. So most of my books take 2 months to write. Like Dal A for Aunties took 2 months to write. But so with Vera, I kind of had this idea, and I sent my agent the blurb, the basically that back cover blurb. And she was like, "Oh, let me send it to your editor and see if she likes it." And my editor was like, "Oh my gosh, we love it so much. We're gonna push everything back. Like Dal A for Aunties 3, we're gonna push back." And then my suspense, which just oh no, wait, it's gonna come out tomorrow. Uh, I had to check the date. Got pushed back as well. And they were like, "We want Vera, can you turn it in like I think she gave me like 4 or 5 months because she knows that I write fast." And I was like, "I don't even have a plot. I don't know who the dead guy is. Like, why is he dead in a tea house? I don't know." And she was like, I believe in you." So then I started writing, and I wrote at my normal speed. But when I was about halfway through, so about 1 month in, I went to a hotel, and I stayed there for 3 nights, and I finished the second half of the book. Um, so I cut down my writing time from 2 months to 1 month. And ever since then, that is how I've written all of my books because, oh my gosh, I love that process so much. It was so magical. Just, staying in the hotel, not having to do like anything for anyone, because I told my husband, and I told our helper, like, don't message me unless like there's a broken bone or something. Oh my God, knock on wood. But and I was like, don't message me about like groceries, or whatever. Like, handle that yourself. I'm gonna be working, and I did, and I really like dived into the story in a way that I have never done before. I actually cried when I wrote like Sana's her the completion of her arc, and how she starts drawing again. And it was just such a beautiful experience.
So there's I don't know if, but there was a movie called The Never Ending Story where this boy read the book, and as he's
Mhm.
reading it, the movie is, I mean, the story is actually happening in the movie. And that's what I was picturing for you. Like you're writing and then there comes Vera and the action happens. So it was, I loved reading about that. Can you tell us a little bit more about your retreat? Do you have a writing partner, another author that goes? Is it just you? Like, what's the secret? What's the magic?
So the first one was just me, but then I've done four now in total, and two of them I did with my friend Lori Elizabeth Flynn, who lives in Canada. So she goes to an Airbnb in Canada, and I go to a hotel in Jakarta, and then we WhatsApp each other, and we're like, "Okay, I'm ready to go," and we do writing sprints together, and that was just beautiful. Like that was perfection. I'm gonna do it again. In September, we're both going to start writing. So we have to like time when we're gonna start writing our next books. We have to actually like schedule it so that we can both do our writing retreats at the same time. Because we just both love it so much.
Yeah, the time zones. You'll have to really coordinate that as well from Canada
Oh
to
yeah.
um,
Yes, totally.
well, I think it's fantastic. People on Instagram will have buddy reads and you're kind of having buddy writes. So I love it. I think it's
Yeah.
now you did also mention that there are movie deals, not just for aunties, but also for this book. Can you tell us, do you have any information or can tell us more?
So Vera Wong was already on auction with different uh, studios, and then all of a sudden, my film agent was like, "Oh, so Oprah and Mindy Kaling read it and love it, and they also want to bid for it. And this was at 6 like 6:15 my time in the morning. And I remember because I was making my kids school lunches, and I can tell you that their lunch boxes sucked that day. I don't even, I think they came home, they were like that was a really bad lunch. And I was like, I don't even care.
Yeah, you kind of get a pass if Oprah is in your
Yeah,
vicinity. Like, I think everybody just sort of goes, wow, you just time just may stop at
I
that
know.
point. They're like,
I was
Mom.
just like throwing random things into the lunch boxes, and I was like, okay, out the door you go, bye.
I love that. Why did I just get packets of wasabi in my lunch today? I don't know. That's just how it happened. All right. The other question I have is, this is a really long title. If you don't see that too often, was this your title all along? Did it change? Was there pushback?
Mm, this was my title, and I was kind of expecting them to change it, but then they just didn't. So then I was like, okay, if you, and then it is really long. Like every time I'm interviewed, I'm like Vera Wong's Unsolicited. Like it's so long, so I just kind of shorten it to like Vera Wong. But yeah, I don't want to come up with long titles again because it's such a mouthful.
That now there was an interesting story about the cover, and that because they needed it out so quickly that while you were writing, they were already
Hmm.
starting the artwork. Was this the actual artwork that we're seeing today, or did it
Yeah.
morph somehow?
No, I think they only changed like the color, but the this is the original one that they sent me, and I was like, oh my God, I'm still writing it, and I have a cover already, and I was freaking out because you just never know if um the book is going to turn out okay until you finish it, right? And this was my first time writing a mystery, like an actual whodunit, because all of my books so far, like who done it. Like in Dal A for Aunties, the main character kills the guy, so there is no mystery. But this was the first time that I've written anything like this, and so I was just like, oh God, I don't know if this is going to work. So it was very stressful.
Do you see yourself wanting to write more mysteries? Because I know we'll talk about the thriller coming up, but like as far as this genre, what did you get out of it? Do you think you'll do it again?
Yeah, I there will be a sequel to Vera Wong because it's done really well. Yeah, so my publisher gave the green light for a sequel, so I'll definitely be writing at least one more and of this kind of mystery.
Well, I saw some claps from Jessica as well, and I'm also clapping because I'm really excited. I think there's so much opportunity. Like Vera can put her nose just about anywhere, and we're gonna enjoy it. And a whole
Oh
nother
yeah.
cast of characters, I'm sure, are gonna join the scene. So I'm super excited. Where in the line of this have you put that work though? Like it sounds like you have so many projects happening. Like when do you think?
Um, I think I'll probably start working on it in a week's time. Because we've been on summer break, and today is like the first day of school for the kids, and I told my husband like I need a week where they're at school and I'm just like doing nothing but like napping, and it's going to be beautiful, and after this week then I'll get to work.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, I think you deserve more than a week. So just take it. Take it. Um, but we're really excited about Vera Wong part two. So, and hopefully more even after that. I do have some rapid fire questions for you. If you're ready, try not to think too much. Just answer what comes to mind. Tea or coffee?
Coffee. Oh, I feel so bad saying that.
I wondered because the younger generation was drinking coffee all throughout. So I love it.
Yeah.
All right, a pastry or a patisserie? American version or French?
Pastry.
Are you an early or a late riser?
Um, an early one because of my kids.
Do you talk to your mom once a day or once a week or once? I'm just curious.
Once a day, I guess.
Beach or mountains?
Ooh, mountains.
Jakarta or Singapore?
Singapore, like hands down. Oh my God, like don't ever let any Indonesian hear that.
San Francisco or Oxford?
San Francisco.
And then do you like to cook or take out?
I prefer cooking.
Mystery or thriller?
Ooh, thriller.
Middle school YA or adult fiction writing?
Adult.
All right. I think we're to the point now. Thank you so much for answering those. I think there's some people who definitely want to ask questions. So if you want to go ahead and raise your hand, and I think we already have our first person, Mary Ellen, is going to come on and ask a question. Go ahead, Mary Ellen. You're going to have to unmute though.
Whoops.
There you are.
Okay. This book was so much fun. Thank you so much for writing it. And also
Thank
your
you.
Instagram ad for your next book with your husband at the end. That was a hoot. So
Thank you.
my first question is actually from your acknowledgments. You used the expression twice there, LOL sobbing. And I want to know, how do you actually pronounce that? And where did that come from? Because I love it. I love it. I want to adopt it.
I don't know. I don't know how you pronounce it, but I didn't come up with the term. And then in my head, I read it as lol sob, but I don't know how to correctly pronounce it.
Okay. That was just a fun expression. I was wondering, do most Asian mothers prepare as many dishes as Vera? And I mean, some of the other characters talked about their mothers preparing a lot of dishes. Even Ricky, with his Indonesian mom, referred to a lot of dishes.
Mhm. Mhm. I feel like a lot of them do because so much of Asian food has to do with rice. So then there's the rice, which is very plain. So then you need accompanying dishes. Then you end up like having to cook like 3 or 4 different dishes per meal, which is why I never cook Asian food. I'm all about like the pastas, like the one pot dishes, because I'm like, I'm not doing all these dishes.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, I can't even imagine doing that. I mean, I'd love to be the recipient of
Yeah.
it, but yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say was the thing that surprised you most in writing this book?
Uh oh, that's such a good question. Wait, let me think. Oh, okay. I would say what was most surprising was how hard it is to write a mystery. And I think because this is my first one, the mystery I feel was slightly simpler. Like it's certainly not like some of the mystery books I've read, with a dozen different like plot lines. But it was so hard. And then I was kind of reading up on it, and someone said, "Oh, how to write mysteries is you need to know like who did it, and then you work backwards from there. So the killer has to be like planning all these things, and then as we read it, then we kind of discover one thing at a time." So I was like, okay, this is breaking my brain.
Well, it was wonderful. I loved it. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much. I'm going to say a couple of comments in the chat box. So Shraddha also says, yes, Asian mothers do. She's Indian and her mom also cooks multiple dishes. And we have Christine who can also confirm that her Japanese mother also does the exact same thing with multiple dishes. So, oh, books and butter Filipino moms as well. So great question. Okay, I want to get to a couple of things. I'll start with the humor part first because you gave kind of a little teaser with the Oxford comment that that's your personality and in the blog on your website. Can you talk a little bit about what that is?
Oh my God, okay, like that joke where you're like, how do you know if a guy has been to Harvard? Well, he'll tell you within 5 minutes of you talking to him. And that's totally me. It can be like completely unrelated. And I'll be like, well, but did you know that I went to Oxford? Did I mention that? Like, I was at like this dinner party and I was talking to this. I was sat next to this guy, and so we were kind of chatting. It was like about an hour and a half into the dinner party, and then he like very casually was like, "Oh yeah, so when I was in Oxford, blah 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 blah," and I was like, "Wait, you were in Oxford?" And he was like, "Yeah, I did both of my bachelor's and my master's there." And I was like, "What? Like we've been talking for over an hour and you only just mentioned it? Like I've made it my entire personality. Like I made sure to tell everyone like boom right off the bat, and you and I was like, wow, is this what it's like to have an actual personality like outside of going to Oxford?"
Oh, I think that's great. I think it's great. And yes, you should be proud.
Yeah.
Oxford is a fantastic.
Thank you.
The other thing, since tomorrow is the real or for you, and then Tuesday for us is the release for your newest novel. Can you give us your best blurb on that book as well? Because this is quite a shift. I mean, you go from what classification do you give Dial an A for Aunties? Like, is that women's fiction? What do you call it?
Yeah, like a comedy. I think my publisher was calling it a comedy caper. I didn't even know that that was a genre.
You go from comedy caper to kind of a cozy murder whodunit to now a major thriller. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so thrillers like dark psychological suspense. They are my bread and butter. Like that's my favorite genre to read. Especially stories that have like really messed up marriages for whatever reason. I cannot have enough of them. And but for the longest time I didn't think I could ever write one until my friend, the one that I go on the writing retreat virtually with, she was like, "Write one, you can do it. Like I'll be with you every step of the way." And so she was, and that was how I wrote the one that's coming out tomorrow. It's called "I'm Not Done With You Yet," and it's about Jane, who is a self-diagnosed sociopath. She has very dark thoughts all the time. She really doesn't like people, and now she's stuck in this really unhappy marriage. And the only time when she was happy was when she was doing her creative writing degree in Oxford, where she met this completely bewitching woman called Thalia. And she becomes obsessed with her. And now, years later, she's lost touch with Thalia. Thalia's ghosted her, but she finally she realizes that Thalia is going to be at this writing convention. And so Jane decides, like, I have to go to this convention and kind of put things right between, Thalia and I. And obviously, nothing can go wrong. So but it's a very dark and twisty thriller. And when my husband read it, I thought he was gonna be like, oh, do you really feel like our marriage is like this bad? But he didn't. He was like, oh, it's kind of awkward that you've written about me as Thalia, and like you're just so obsessed with me. Like um he completely identifies with the beautiful blonde lady that Jane becomes obsessed with. So good for him.
Exactly. Do you see yourself keeping the door open to all these genres because you like writing them, or do you think you'll head down a particular path at some point and keep going, or maybe a new genre at this point?
I think I will definitely keep writing in the genres I've written because I love all of them so much. I recently wrote a fantasy, and I did not love writing the fantasy. It's so difficult. So my hat is off to all the, sci-fi and fantasy writers. I don't know how they do it, but yeah, I think I will stick probably to the contemporary genres.
I feel like it takes so much time for authors to write that fantasy world. I mean, you're having to invent everything.
Mm-hmm.
If you do, you better like
Yeah.
put multiple books in it because you've had to create so much from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
crazy.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
plan this book out, or did you sort of pants it a little bit as you went?
So I used to be a pantser, but I can't do that anymore because it was just so time consuming. So now I outline really meticulously. Like I have a chapter by chapter outline. I have a beautiful like 7-page synopsis. And as I write, I'm updating my outline because like things do change. But uh, I'm I think I've become a lot more controlling ever since I had kids. So my characters can't just be like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this other thing," and I'm like, "No, like you're gonna listen to the outline."
Were you able, I mean, you're funny. Like you're a funny person. Were you able to throw in bits of humor even in the psychological thriller, or did you have to back away from that so that you could stay in a darker space?
So I thought that I was like, "Oh, this is my dark era," but then I keep seeing like reviews that are like, oh, it's so funny as well. And I was like, really? But like I was trying to, be dark and mysterious, but I guess it kind of leaked out.
Just a little late. Well, we're excited for it to come out on Tuesday. Want to offer one more chance if anybody has a question for Jesse. Um, we always ask what books you recommend for us readers, or is there anything that you've read recently in the past or just want to share with us?
Well, so I know that this has probably been recommended a million times, but I feel like this year's standout is Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang. And I just couldn't put it down. It's one of those books that um, I read in 2 days, I think. My eyes were just glued to the page because it's like watching a train wreck, but like a really good train wreck.
Oh, we have another person reading. Amandine is also reading Yellowface, and Julie's already read it. So, um, well, I just want to thank you so much. Amandine, you get the last question. Go.
Okay. Hi, I just want to say that I love your book. And I've gotten my friends and my family to read it. My mom
Aw.
is 60 years old and she is Chinese and Vietnamese and came to America when she was young. And she really doesn't read English books or really read at all, but she absolutely loved your book. It's her favorite book this
Aw.
year. And I have so many people who are just such a huge fan of all of your books. Where can we go to get some signed copies?
I signed copies when I went to New York, but there are very few signed copies, unfortunately, just because I'm based in Indonesia. But I have been asked for signed copies, so I think I will work something out with my publisher, like maybe where I can send them, those stickers
Oh, the book.
that are signed or something. Yeah, but I will post about it on Instagram.
Keep an eye out
if
for it.
I do work something out. Yeah.
Thank you.
That would be great. And great request, Amandine, because we all need that. Thanks so much for asking that. All right. Well, Jessie, thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure check out her website. Definitely check out her Instagram because her reels are hilarious. And she's kind of the star of a new magazine. You might want to check that out too, that we all love for writers. It's her humor just cracks me up. Get to follow all the fun adventures with the kids. I loved the safari, or what was it? You went to the farm, but it was really a resort. Anyway,
Oh, yeah.
it's fantastic. If you would also follow me, LB the Lover of Books, I'm on Facebook and Instagram and also on YouTube. So if you didn't get to catch all of this, missed part of it, we're cooking dinner, your noodles, whatever you're cooking, you can always go to YouTube and watch the recording. On Sunday, September 8th at 8 p.m., I'll be chatting with debut novelist Laura Spence Ash for her historical fiction novel, Beyond That, the Sea. It's a sweeping, tender-hearted love story telling the story of two families on opposite sides of the Atlantic Ocean and the young women who will call them both their own. And if you've ever heard of Julia Quinn, the Bridgerton author, she said this debut novel and captivated me from the start to the finish. So it's really something you're going to want to check out. But if you know of an author that you'd like to chat with, please let me know. Like I said, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It really helps my reach and it gets these authors more readers in front of them. So Jessie, you're amazing. Thank you for sticking it out, waking up so early with us and everything. And we so appreciate this. And when you come, let us know if you come back to the US and we'll try to make it to the bookstore.
I will.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.